Most men wander through love like blind beggars clawing for crumbs. They confuse politeness with passion, comfort with conquest, and they pray that kindness alone will ignite desire. But desire, as Nietzsche reminds us, is not born from meekness. It is born from fire, from will to power, from the audacity to impose one's presence on the chaos of another soul. To believe otherwise is to live in mediocrity, to suffocate in the dull routine of dating rituals that have no blood, no thunder, no transcendence. Think of it. How many men sit in silence, waiting for women to notice them, hoping affection will be rewarded like a trophy for good behavior? Yet Schopenhauer argued that desire is not a polite dance, but a cosmic struggle of will against will. Love is warfare disguised as tenderness. When you strip away the hallmark slogans, what remains is raw strategy, an animalistic collision of instincts, filtered through the masks of culture. And in this battlefield, most men lose, not because they lack money, looks, or wit, but because they lack the courage to embrace what desire truly is: existential warfare. Camus told us that the absurd defines our lives, and nowhere is absurdity more intoxicating than in love. To want someone, truly want them, is to demand meaning in a world that offers none. It is rebellion against indifference. It is choosing to stand naked in the storm of vulnerability and still declaring, "I want." That rebellion, when harnessed, makes a woman not simply notice you, but orbit you, burn for you, dream of you when no one is watching. But here's the heresy. The 5 ways I will reveal are not the safe tricks from pop psychology blogs or dating coaches selling snake oil. These are forbidden truths, carved from the bones of philosophy and the flesh of psychology, truths that destabilize the illusions we've been fed. If you dare to absorb them, you will not merely attract a woman, you will make her obsession inevitable. The question is, are you ready to hear what no one else will tell you? But that's just the beginning. Attention is the currency of desire, and most men beg for it like children rattling tin cups. They text too much, they hover, they wait for permission to be noticed. But presence, true presence, cannot be begged for. It must be declared, radiated, imposed. Freud understood that beneath our masks of civility, the id roars, demanding satisfaction. A woman does not lose herself to a man who blends into wallpaper. She loses herself to the man who bends the environment to his will, who moves through the room as if it already belongs to him. Presence is not loudness. It is not arrogance. It is density of being. Jung's concept of the anima whispers here. The feminine is drawn to the masculine, who has integrated his shadows, who is unafraid of his darkness. When you embody your contradictions, your strength and your wounds, your confidence and your scars, you exude the magnetic tension of a complete human being. That tension forces others, especially women, to notice you. They don't even know why. They simply feel the gravity. Think of Nietzsche again. The will to power is not about domination of others, but mastery of the self until the world cannot help but bend. If you walk into a space with a spine like steel, eyes unflinching, and words weighted like stone, you command more than attention. You command inevitability. And a woman, whether she admits it or not, craves inevitability. Because inevitability means security, excitement, and danger all at once. So stop asking for her gaze. Stop performing cheap tricks for her amusement. Become the man whose silence is louder than another's speech, whose stillness is heavier than another's frantic gestures. The one she cannot ignore, the one her nervous system recognizes before her mind does. But presence alone is not enough. Presence opens the door. The next truth forces her to step inside, willingly, and never look back. Desire is not born in comfort. Comfort breeds friendship, stability, predictability, all admirable virtues, but none of them make a woman ache for you. What ignites her blood is volatility, the spark that threatens to unbalance her carefully ordered world. Schopenhauer claimed that desire thrives in lack, in tension, in the distance between what we crave and what we possess. If you collapse that distance too quickly, if you give everything, reveal everything, agree to everything, you extinguish the flame before it can spread. Modern psychology confirms this ancient cruelty. Helen Fisher's research into neurochemistry shows that dopamine spikes not when we have certainty, but when we are suspended in anticipation. It's the unpredictability of reward, the not knowing if the text will come, if the kiss will land, if the affection will deepen, that floods the brain with obsession. Too much safety kills attraction. Too much accessibility robs the encounter of its sacred charge. So how do you wield this? You must dare to provoke, not through cruelty, but through deliberate resistance. Challenge her ideas, tease her with wit that borders on audacity, withhold the immediate yes, the easy approval. Camus spoke of the absurd, and love is absurd precisely because it thrives on contradiction. We want intimacy, but we are electrified by distance. A man who embodies that paradox becomes unforgettable. He is both familiar and foreign, tender and ruthless, steady and unpredictable. He makes her nervous system oscillate, and in that oscillation, desire metastasizes. This is not a game of manipulation. It is a recognition of the primal truth. Passion is forged in friction. The man who dares to stand as a storm in her calm sky becomes the one she cannot forget, the one she cannot replace. He becomes danger disguised as destiny. But danger, if not anchored, burns out. To move from provocation to permanence, you must awaken something deeper within her psyche. Every woman carries within her a myth, an unconscious script written long before she ever meets you. Jung called it the anima, the eternal feminine, the archetypal image of what stirs the soul into rapture and despair. To make a woman go crazy about you, you must learn to awaken this myth, not by pretending to be her fantasy, but by embodying the eternal roles that whisper through her bloodline, her dreams, her cultural inheritance. Why does a woman melt at the presence of a man who seems both protector and outlaw? Because buried in her psyche is the ancestral memory of the warrior, the king, the wanderer who carried danger and safety in one breath. Why does she crave the man who both comforts her and terrifies her? Because the archetype of Eros itself is contradiction, creation and destruction, tenderness and wrath. Sternberg's triangular theory of love tells us passion, intimacy, and commitment form the sacred triad, but passion always leads. And passion is ignited when you trigger her archetypal longing. A man who is merely nice fails here. Niceness has no myth. Niceness has no depth. But a man who embodies myth, who stands like the hero on the threshold of her unconscious, becomes more than a lover. He becomes a symbol. This is where Nietzsche's Übermensch collides with romance. To transcend mediocrity, you must become larger than life in her imagination. Not by lies or performance, but by living so fully, so unapologetically, that she cannot help but project her deepest myth onto you. She doesn't just want you. She wants what you represent: freedom, danger, salvation, ruin. You are no longer just a man. You are the archetype that her soul has been waiting to recognize. But when she sees you as myth, she also fears losing you. And it is in that fear where the next layer of obsession is born. Nothing drives the human psyche mad like the specter of loss. Schopenhauer wrote that desire is defined not by possession, but by the torment of what we lack. Neuroscience proves him right. Dopamine is not the chemical of satisfaction, but of pursuit. The more elusive the prize, the more the brain floods with hunger. And so, if you want to make a woman go crazy about you, you must become scarce, not absent, not indifferent, but scarce like gold, like fire in the night. Most men destroy attraction by overexposure. They drown her in availability, texting at every moment, answering instantly, scheduling their lives around her whims. In doing so, they transform themselves into background noise. Predictable, boring, replaceable. But when you embody scarcity, every presence of yours becomes charged. Every glance, every touch, every message carries weight, because it could be the last. Camus would remind us, the absurd lies in knowing all things end. Love is intoxicating precisely because it hovers on the edge of loss. To withdraw at times, to let silence hang heavy, is not cruelty, it is creation. It is the deliberate crafting of absence which makes her imagination spiral, filling the void with you. She begins to wonder, where is he? Who else is he with? Why do I miss him this much? That wondering is the seed of obsession. But withdrawal must be strategic. Too much and you become ghost. Too little and you suffocate her with presence. The art is to vanish just enough to make her chase, to retreat just enough to make her advance. You transform her desire into a battlefield where she fights herself and loses. And every time you return, you are not the same man who left. You return heavier, more enigmatic, more necessary. Scarcity is not the endgame, though. It is the accelerant. For once she craves you in absence, you must bind her through a deeper truth, one that even she cannot admit to herself. Most men chase bodies. The wise man claims souls. And nothing makes a woman lose her mind like the man who seizes the throne of meaning in her life. Robert Sternberg spoke of intimacy, passion, commitment. But beneath them all lies narrative. A woman does not truly fall for you because of dinners, jokes, or fleeting touches. She falls because you become the central chapter of her existential story. Think of it. Every human being walks through life craving coherence. Camus declared life absurd, meaningless, a void. Yet we rebel by stitching fragments of existence into narrative. I am here because, I love because, I suffer because. If you infiltrate that narrative, if you give her life a sense of mythic unfolding, she cannot help but bind herself to you. You are no longer a man. You are her axis of meaning, her proof that existence is not chaos but destiny. How do you achieve this? You do not offer shallow entertainment. You do not talk endlessly of surface trivia. Instead, you speak to her dreams, her wounds, her unspoken terrors. You make her feel seen not as a woman, but as the trembling soul beneath the woman. And then you align her chaos with your vision. Nietzsche's will to power lives here. The one who defines the story defines the desire. If you become her interpreter of existence, her translator of pain into purpose, she will follow you to the ends of the earth, because to lose you would mean to lose herself. Freud, Jung, Fischer all agree in their own ways. Love is not rational. It is a psychic possession. And possession thrives when you enter the marrow of meaning, when you become the voice echoing in her silences, the thought that shapes her solitude, the figure that makes her suffering not random but necessary. But this is dangerous power. To carry the weight of another's meaning is to wield both creation and destruction. And when men taste this power, the story always escalates. Now the veil is lifted, and what stands before us is not romance, but war. Most men still cling to the illusion that love is mutual comfort, a soft agreement of companionship. But desire is not soft. Desire is not polite. Desire is the battlefield where instincts, myths, and vulnerabilities clash. To make a woman go crazy about you is not to win her heart. Like a prize at the fair, it is to awaken the forces she cannot control, to summon her into a storm where she both fears you and needs you. Think of Schopenhauer's cruelty. Desire is endless striving, an engine that torments us because satisfaction never lasts, and yet that torment is the fire we worship. She doesn't crave your gifts or your promises. She craves the way your absence gnaws at her ribs, the way your gaze fractures her self-control, the way your silence forces her to wonder if she is enough. Love, in its rawest form, is suffering we choose. And when you understand this, you no longer mistake comfort for victory. You understand that to ignite desire is to make her bleed willingly. But here lies the paradox. This battlefield is not about destruction for its own sake. It is about transformation. Jung taught us that the encounter with the other is always the encounter with ourselves. The anima, the shadow, the archetype, when you awaken her, you awaken yourself. And in that mutual awakening, madness is born. So ask yourself, do you dare to live as fire rather than ash? Do you dare to abandon the script of mediocrity and embrace the violent poetry of desire? Because once you step onto this battlefield, there is no turning back. But the battlefield is only the beginning. There is a higher escalation, where desire ceases to be merely personal and becomes political, spiritual, even revolutionary. To make a woman go crazy about you is not merely to win her affection. It is to rebel against the order of a world that neuters men and sterilizes passion. Society teaches you to be agreeable, polite, harmless. They tell you love is equality, negotiation, compromise. But look closely. Compromise breeds neutrality. Neutrality breeds boredom. And boredom is the coffin where passion is buried alive. Nietzsche thundered that man must overcome himself, rise above the herd. Apply this to love, and you see the truth. Most relationships are arranged not by fire, but by mediocrity. Two exhausted souls clinging together out of fear of loneliness, rather than being consumed by the ecstasy of wanting. To make a woman mad for you is to defy this mediocrity, to live in such intensity that her existence is shattered, rebuilt, and exalted by your presence. Camus would say this is absurd, that we demand meaning in a meaningless world. And yet, the absurd man embraces rebellion. He loves without reason. He chooses passion in defiance of death itself. To live as this man is to embody revolt, to stand against the triviality of comfort, to drag her into the wild unknown where her pulse cannot rest. She doesn't just fall for you. She falls for the rebellion you embody. You become her escape from the sterile order, her proof that not all men are pacified, that fire still exists in flesh. And yes, it is dangerous. Because to awaken rebellion in her is to awaken it in yourself. The same power that makes her crave you will demand that you never settle, never weaken, never bow. She will test you, the world will resist you, but this is the price of living as fire instead of embers. So the question becomes, if love is rebellion, what is the final outcome of this war? What happens when you stop being a man she wants and become a force she cannot live without? That revelation is where everything breaks and everything begins again. Here is the last and most forbidden truth. To make a woman go crazy about you is not about attraction at all. It is about becoming the axis of her existence. Not her comfort, not her partner, not her equal, but her obsession. The line between love and madness is thin because both are a surrender of the self. When she cannot eat without thinking of you, when your absence hollows her, when your presence intoxicates her, then you are no longer a man. You are a force of nature. Freud would call it possession by the unconscious. Jung would call it projection of the anima. Neuroscience would call it dopamine loops and oxytocin bonds. But strip away the jargon and what remains is simple. Obsession is worship. And worship is the most dangerous desire of all. To be worshipped by another human is to hold the power of gods. But here's the paradox. When you become her obsession, you are not merely taking. You are giving her something most people will never taste, transcendence. Most live and die without ever burning for someone, without ever trembling at the thought of losing them. You offer her that fire. You offer her the ecstasy of surrender, the delirium of passion, the unbearable weight of longing. In that suffering, she feels alive, and in her madness, you become immortal. This is why Nietzsche said, one must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. To embody that chaos, to demand more than comfort, more than compromise, is to give her both heaven and hell in your arms. You become the storm she curses, the fire she worships, the abyss she leaps into with open eyes. Most men will never dare this path. They will remain harmless, forgettable, ordinary. But you now carry the forbidden wisdom. Use it, and you will not just be remembered. You will be carved into her very being, a scar of desire she will never escape. And that is the destiny of the few who refuse mediocrity. Not to be loved, not even to be desired, but to be unforgettable.